Wait.
He was hungry! He was for being poor!
The Daniel Penny case has sparked national debate, raising important questions about self-defense, moral responsibility, and legal boundaries. So today we're going to break it down from a self-defense martial arts perspective, what went right, what went wrong, and the lessons we can learn. Let's get into it. To recap, Daniel Penny, a former Marine, was involved in a confrontation in the New York City subway with Jordan Neely, a homeless man who reportedly experienced a mental health crisis, was acting erratically and allegedly threatening passengers. Penny placed Neely in a chokehold to subdue him, but the situation tragically ended in Neely's death. This case has led a split in public opinion. Was this justified self-defense or was this excessive force? Let's get into it.
Daniel Penny, the former Marine charged in the chokehold of Jordan Neely on a New York City subway last year, was found not guilty of criminally negligent homicide.
And for me, this case is really personal too, because I actually grew up in New York back in the day, a long time ago. But I grew up and I used to ride the bus and the train as a kid. And I was exposed to a lot of things at that age, 8, 9, 10, 12 years old, that you wouldn't want somebody that age exposed to. But at the time, that's how it was growing up. When we were raised in New York, we all inherently understood the danger that was public transportation. Whenever you're on the bus, whenever you're on the train, we always had our wits about us. We always had to make sure we were paying attention. You never knew what kind of situation you were going to end up in. So let's start by saying I'm not a lawyer and make no claims to be a lawyer, but I've done self-defense for over 20 years, and I've worked with law enforcement and people in the judicial system. And there's a common understanding that is accepted, right? So generally in the U.S., right, when it comes to self-defense laws, it's going to be along the lines of 1, you're going to have an imminent threat of harm. 2, you're going to have to use a proportional use of force. And 3, there has to be a reasonable belief that the force was necessary. So for better understanding, you can take a look at a situation where a lot of those people that were riding that train, like me, grew up in New York. So, we were very accustomed to people coming up to us asking for money or just being confrontational in our face. But a lot of these people who have that same experience, they said they were in fear for their life that they've never been their entire life. So that says something about the mindset that this guy was in, that Jordan was in. And it's unfortunate that we're in that situation, but it's not their fault that they should be afraid for their life, that somebody has to intervene to protect everybody on that train. The key question in this case, though, is, was the threat Neely posed a truly imminent? And did Penny's response, maintaining a chokehold for as long as he did, kind of exceed that threshold where it crossed over from self-defense into something more? Self-defense doesn't justify actions that continue beyond the point of neutralizing the threat. I've said that for years. You can ask any of my students. And I'm not so sure that was the case here. If you've ever worked with law enforcement or worked at bars and nightclubs, you know how hard it can be to control somebody that does not want to be controlled. People that are in an altered state due to drugs or alcohol, or it could be people that are having a mental health crisis. It is incredibly hard to hold somebody down. So I seriously doubt that he was maintaining the choke that strong, like fully on 100% for that 6 minutes plus. He likely would have been at the 2-minute mark probably, because anything over, basically, you start getting into 40, 50 seconds, you've got brain damage. I think this is largely a case of Jordan Neely had a massive amount of drugs in his system. He had a mental health crisis, and a combination of that, along with being vascularly restrained, aka a choke, led to a result which was not favorable for him. But unfortunately, he left people in a position where they felt they had no choice in that but to engage and defend themselves. Part of the problem here is that people say, okay, well, yeah, they needed to do something to get him under control, but what you fail to realize is it's extremely difficult to do. You can look at a case where you have somebody that's down on the ground. If you control their legs, their upper body is still totally capable, right? They can still fight their way up to their feet. If you control their upper body, they can still thrash and kick with their legs. So one way to control the individual is to control the head. If you control the head, you control what that individual does for the most part. So it's a great control tactic, but it may not necessarily be something where you have to choke the entire person the entire time. If you're maintaining a good control of their head, it may be perceived as a choke, but it's rather just making sure that you've got the individual in your command. If a choke is executed properly, we're talking about 4 to 8 seconds. Most people, you're going to be out. 10 to 15 seconds, right on the outer edges, if there's maybe something a little loose in the choke. But you start getting higher up into those numbers. of somebody actually choking. And so if we know that it takes between 4 to 8, maybe 10 to 15 on the outlier side to choke somebody out, then if we understand that he was still resisting, he was still fighting at a time, we can really gather that Daniel wasn't putting enough pressure to choke him unconscious. The most humane thing here may have been for him to simply choke him out and then maintain control, maybe tie his hands and feet so he's no longer a threat, as opposed to maintaining that tight pressure. But this is all hindsight stuff where we can calmly say in the moment, this is not nearly the case when you're actually in the heat of it. Would de-escalation have helped in this situation? Honestly, I don't think it would have, because from everything that the researchers have brought together, the investigators have brought together to the table, is that this guy was having a serious mental health crisis, and he was just totally out of it. From what my research shows, he was arrested 42 times. If anything, we need to take a look back at the judges and the prosecutors who allowed this man that was arrested for 42 times, who obviously had issues, to be free and be a danger to himself and other people. But that's neither here nor there. But going back to the de-escalation side of it, you can't de-escalate your way out of crazy. That's being honest, right? So in this perspective, you've got a person that's, if you're the type of person that would go into the Marines are famously known for being sent in to break shit, then you're the type of person that if you're on a public train in New York City and you have somebody that's threatening other people around you, you're not going to sit idly by and watch people be possibly in danger. Somebody with experience in the military and law enforcement understands that threats can escalate very quickly. It can go from just being in somebody's face and threatening them to, they punch or they stab, right? And somebody's unalived. So you have to be really mindful. He's in a proactive mindset rather than purely a defensive mindset where you wait till you see what the threat does, then you do something from that. What kind of lessons can we get from this from a self-defense perspective? Let's break it down. So one, we have know the law, at least know the law in your area. The law in New York is going to be a whole lot different than the law in Florida. So you want to make yourself intimately aware with the essentials of self-defense. So one common misconception is that assault and battery are the same thing. Assault is, you don't have to put hands on somebody to be an assault. Batteries actually when you get hands-on with an individual, right? That's battery, right? So it sounds like more he was worried about the potential threat, right? The potential battery, right? They were all being assaulted at the moment. The threat was imminent, so he decided to take action. Next is practice with intent for control. So I have to mince my words a little bit, but you don't want to train self-defense from the perspective of, I'm going to half choke this person or half do this move. Either you're worried enough about your safety or people around you, their safety, or there's no threat. You're not immediate threat, right? You don't do anything for the moment. So if you do take action, you want to make sure that you have enough control that you don't now then become the aggressor in that situation. And 3, the last one is to prioritize safety. Your goal should be to practice to protect, not to harm or to escalate. This case is a tragic reminder of how quickly things can spiral out of control and why self-defense requires not just skill, but good solid judgment as well. I am 100% certain, even though I've never spoken with him, that Daniel Penny did not wake up that morning and decide, you know what? Today's a day I want to unalive somebody on the subway. I want to take that dude off the census. Right? I highly doubt that's his train of thought. Yet it's the reality that he finds himself in and having to deal with. So let me know your thoughts below in the comments, right? Give me some feedback. What are your thoughts on the Daniel Penny case? So I think this is a case where the judicial system really failed Jordan Neely for a long, long time. And this was a situation that was almost inevitable on a long enough timeline. So unfortunately, Daniel Penny was the guy that had to deal with it all. And I try to stay out of politics and race and stuff on this channel in general, but I think this is probably a case where if Daniel Penny was of a different shade, like the other guys that helped him at the moment, he probably wouldn't be getting prosecuted to this extent or at all. I hate that we're turning a self-defense situation into a public scandal unnecessarily. But let me know your thoughts and comments below. And remember, self-defense is much more about restraint than it is about just raw, pure action. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.